Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Build Muscle and Burn Fat podcast. My name is Sean, of course, and before I can even start this, I just want to ask you guys for a massive favor. If you get value from my podcast, please just take a screenshot of the podcast and tag me on Instagram. That's sean.momentum, that's SEAN.momentum. And I would love to be able to just know who's listening to the podcast and we can engage in a conversation. Anyway, let's get with today's episode. Today, I wanted to talk about something that maybe you are experiencing. I know I've had a few people in my close coaching circle and my clients have this experience, and some of them are dealing it really well. And some of them have no idea what's happening. So this is why I'm going through this episode, because what I'm actually talking about is what happens when you start to see your weight loss plateau. This is a very scary feeling for people out there who have never really gone through this journey before. Or maybe you've done this journey several times and you always hit this sticking point where you'll lose a lot of kilos, like 4 kilos in the first month, but then the 5th and 6th week, you start to see no change on the scales. Should you be worried? Well, I'm actually going to go break this down and tell you what's kind of happening and how you can combat this. Because evidently, of course, it can be a bit scary. And especially if you're uncertain about what to do, I want to give you some of the things that you can do, look out for, and to really encourage you along this journey. So, to give you a bit of context, I've had about 3 or 4 new clients start with me and join the team in January, and they're all making really good progress with the nutrition system that we're working with. They've started to see some weights go down, and honestly, it's been pretty fast. Some as fast as 4 kilos, or I think that's roughly around 8.5 pounds for people in America in 4 weeks. Now, is that fast? Yes, definitely. And that was my Google Home, in case you couldn't hear that in the background. But even though it's being quite fast, it's making sure that we understand what's happening. So first thing what we try and do with the nutrition system that we have is we try and eliminate quite a bit of processed foods. And this has a big effect on what food you intake, and that intake of food tends to be whole-based foods which keep you fuller for longer. This will keep you energized, keep you fuller for longer, like I mentioned before, and the weight also starts to drop off. Now, as we have less processed foods, we also reduce a lot of salt. So you're reducing salt, unnecessary processed carbohydrates, and your water weight tends to come down as well. This on the scale shows us, hey look, I'm losing lots of weight. Great news, isn't it? For most people. When you start to hit roughly that when you start to hit that 4th or 5th week of your process and your journey, this is where things start to stall. Now, this is what I'm going to tell you right now. Don't worry about that. The reason why I am not so fussed about the scales is because we have so many more things that are working on the internal as well as other measurements as well. We don't want to be using a ruler to be measuring your weight. That's generally what people are trying to do. They're trying to use the weight scales to measure other factors that need to be measured in different ways. So you can't use the weight scales to measure how strong you are. And those are one of the measurements I would like you to use. So today, I'm going to go through things that you should be looking out for and using alongside your weight scales to really measure your true progress. Let's get to the first one, like I mentioned before, your strength. So this particular person that was sharing me the story, and I'll keep him anonymous, but I'm first of all going to put this in forward front. I'm very proud of his progress. He has dropped approximately 4 to 6 kilos in the first 5 weeks. And one thing I wanted to put forward front to this person was, let's have a look at how you're moving. Can you tell me about your strength? So if you can squat 30 kilos one week and you're moving into the next week and you do 35 kilos, that's a great progress in its own, given that obviously you're not hurting your joints or anything like that. The next one is also the endurance that you can withstand. For the people out there, maybe the ladies, you can glute hip thrust 15 reps, and then the next week you can do 20. And we all know that somewhere between 1 and 30 reps is going to help you build muscle. These are great ways to actually see your true progress beyond the scales. How much you can, how much strength you've increased and how much you can endure as well. Physical training always out trumps what you can do on the scales. Obviously there's some context in between. For focusing on fat loss, even if you maintain the same amount of weight and you're getting stronger, that's a great place to be. You know why? Brings us to number 2 now. The more muscle that you can build, the better your metabolism is going to be. And you're not going to see that on the weight scales. Now, for those of you out there who don't know what the metabolism is, I think everyone does actually know what it is. It's the first thing that everyone blames, why they're not losing weight. But it's also the one thing that we want to train. And as a fat loss coach, I try and teach people, if we can increase the amount of food and you're maintaining your weight while still training and your measurements are going down, you're in a very good place. Because the world as we know it is totally under-muscled. If we had more muscle on most of the people that I saw in the clinics that I used to run and own, most of their problems would be solved. From diabetes to knee injuries, shoulder injuries, fall incidences, medications would be down as well. Now that's obviously a very big long-term problem that we're looking at, but having more muscle, increased metabolism, increased strength, that's points 1 and 2, would solve many problems, and those are the things that you should be using to help you track your progress. And to do this, for number 1, you should be always logging all your strength training in some sort of manner. So do that on an app, and we do that with our training apps with people who coach with me, or you can put it into just a normal training book. For number 2, with the metabolism, start to see your relationships with food. If you're eating more calories or more portion sizes and you're still maintaining your weight and your strength is doing good, that's a clear indicator that your metabolism is increasing. Sometimes, and it's not uncommon to see people actually eat more food, especially when they're choosing more wholesome based foods, and they're still losing weight. It's amazing. You always want to lose weight and also lose fat with the most amount of food, not the other way around. Any idiot can do it with the least amount of food, all right? The third one is measurements. Now, I personally don't do a lot of measurements because I'm not great with putting measuring tape around my hips and my shoulders. Funny story, I used to train a few tailors and they used to yell at me at how I used to measure things. I was like, as long as it's reliable, it's going to be repeatable as well. That's another story for another time. But being able to measure yourself is going to help you a lot because you can see the differences of things growing, shrinking as well. So you might actually have the exact same body weight, but what your weight is made of looks completely different. And sometimes this is more important. Now, if you're not a person who likes to, it's not going to be easy if I'm being honest. But if you're a person who can't measure yourself with a measuring tape, start to use clothing as reference. So for myself, I'm not sure about you guys, it can be in an Asian household. I always get told, hey Sean, we're going to buy you this clothes here. It's 2 sizes bigger because you'll grow into it. Funny enough, I was 18 years old and I was still 47 kilos or 95 pounds for those people in the freedom country. Never grew into it until probably 2 years ago. So that's another way that you can start to progress if you want to see yourself grow. Another one is obviously if you have a smaller size dress and it fits a little bit better. That's another way to track your progress, how clothes fit. Now, this is my 5th one that you can start to add on. This podcast went a little bit faster than I thought. So let's go back to that 4th one with the measurements. I got a story for you. I remember in my first year of uni when I was 47 kilos, my friend and I would have a bit of a competition. It goes, all right, over the summer period, and in Australia, that's December, January, and February. This is usually when universities close down. And I know for some people out there, like that's common sense, especially if you're in Australia. But believe it or not, in other countries, I believe you don't have a break during this time. And I'm probably not going to be the most jacked, yoked guy ever, but I'm going to measure my progress with my energy levels to keep up with them, to keep up with my family, help my wife, to even saying how much I can move in terms of mobility without aches and pains. Different seasons in your life, you're going to have to use different tools. So just make sure you know what you need to have in your tool belt, should I say, and know which ones to use at the right time. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. And all I can ask at this point in time is if you could please head over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave me a 5-star review or 4-star review. I would do with that. Give me some feedback and let me know if this podcast is delivering you value, because I want to make sure that everything I say on these podcasts are going to help someone out there. So if you click on one episode, I just want that one episode to help you out, and hopefully the next episode and the next one. I never really want to just release podcasts for the hell of it. I want every single one to have meaning, something you can action, and if you could help me out with just making sure we can spread the good word of health and fitness in a longevity manner, well, I'm doing my job and I can probably die happy. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in for another episode. Keep building momentum, and once again, follow me on Instagram. That's Sean, SEAN .momentum. Take care, everyone. See you in the next one.